welcome to episode 58 of my Doll's House Diary. Now in today's episode I'm going to begin by updating you on a few bits and pieces that I've been doing around the doll's house, and then it's going to be a sort of snagging issues video. So I'm going to be putting right a few things in there, touching up paint, filling holes and all things like that, and I just thought it would be fun if you join me as I do it. So let's get started. So I started off by making a cardboard template for the area inside the front door. With the template in place, I closed up the main front door of the house and then drew a pencil line between the two central flooring strips. And it's important you do this if you want your floor strips to run on, especially as if in my case the small area in front of the front door isn't as wide as the entrance hall flooring. I copied the measurement of that line onto the other side of the template so that I keep the flooring strips straight, and then applied the strips. And it's for these smaller jobs that all those little offcuts you keep really come in handy. Once I'd covered the template, I turned over and trimmed off any overhanging strips. I then sanded the piece, added nail holes, and then applied the first coat of walnut wood dye. In the end I did about 3 coats of wood dye to get the piece of flooring to match what's already there. With the flooring strip ready to glue into place, I began by dusting the area using a soft brush. I then glued the flooring strip into place, having first made sure that the lines in between the strips were lined up with those in the piece of flooring already in place in the entrance hall. I then covered the flooring with a piece of kitchen towel and used my large clamps to secure it in place whilst the glue dried. Whilst the flooring was drying into place, I started doing a bit of filling in the landing area. My favourite wood filler to use is the Ronseal Smooth Finish filler, but really anything that says smooth or fine finish is really good for doll's house work. And this one is lovely and creamy and really does work well into all of the tiny gaps. When I'm filling, I smooth a small amount onto the gap to be filled and then rub it in with my finger. Make sure you're wearing a glove if you do that. And then I either use the spreader or a cocktail stick to really work it into the gap. Remove as much as you can and then you don't have as much sanding to do afterwards. Once I'd filled all of the gaps I could see, I left the filler to dry for a good couple of hours. And once it had completely dried, I sanded to tidy up all of the areas that I'd filled. I then applied another coat of paint onto all of the woodwork and onto some areas of the wall where I'd accidentally got pencil or where it looked a little bit grubby. Whilst working in the door area, I noticed that the inside and outside of the front door was looking a little bit shabby, so I decided to give that another coat of black gloss. Whilst the gloss was drying, I used miniature stone coating to touch up the paint on the outside of the doll's house and also along the edges of the walls on the inside. My tub of stone coating is quite old and was very dry when I first opened the lid, so I'm giving it a really good stir. When applying stone coating, use a stippling effect rather than brushing, Otherwise all you're doing is brushing on the sand and then brushing it off again. This will give a better finish. So I left the doll's house doors open overnight to let that completely dry, and so that the paint didn't then sort of stick to the inside of the doors. And I'm really pleased with how that looks now. It really has neatened up those edges. I still need to do along the very bottom edge, which sits at the top of the cabinet, but I just wanted to lift the doll's house up slightly and put something under there, put some paper under there to protect the cabinet top. So I'll go along there. And also, since I've sort of been having a look at it this morning, I've seen a few more little bits that I need to go over. There's some sort of little bits here. I'm not sure what they are really, whether I've sort of splashed when I've been doing other things in the doll's house. That maybe could be a bit of wood dye or something, I don't know. Or could even be a reaction or a bit of damp or something like that. But I need to go over that. And then I didn't do the attic windows, I realised this morning as well. And again, they've got a few little marks on them that I want to cover up. I'm just going to close the doors and show you what I did on the outside. And when I started applying it, I was a little bit worried that the colour wouldn't be the same, but it has actually dried exactly the same. So where I've just sort of touched up areas, it's dried the same as what was already there, so that's good. Otherwise I'd have had to go over everything. But yeah, really pleased with how that looks. I'm going to close the main door as well. That needs a little bit of adjustment, the actual main part of the door, the double part, because it's a little bit tight when I push it closed. And it's okay at the moment because it sort of holds itself tightly in place, but I do want to adjust that so that it will close and sit nicely against the first door. But again, it's just really sort of brightened it up. And I'm not sure if that comes across on camera, but looking at it sort of in real life, it really has made a difference, so I'm really pleased with that. And look at that front door. A lovely gloss on that, and that was the Humbrol enamel gloss black I used for the door. I forgot to show you the tin, but it was a large tin that I actually got when I first got the doll's house, and I was worried when I was opening it that it wasn't going to be usable, but just a really good stir and that was fine. So that's lasted for a good 20 years. But yeah, I really love how that door looks, and I was just trying to remember where I got that door furniture from. I remember I paid at the time what I thought was quite a lot for it. Got like the little letterbox there, and a really sort of small, true to scale door knocker there. And I remember it was a little blue catalogue from the Doll's House company, but I can't remember what they were called now. I'm not sure even if they're still going. I can just remember I did pay quite a bit for those, and I think it was worth it because I really love the letterbox. The only thing I am going to have to do, because that didn't come with a backing plate, is make my own backing plate, and that's another of the little jobs I'd like to do as part of today's video. That looks good on the inside as well, doesn't it? So I'm going to be doing a surround around that door, and I'll use the same skirting board that I've used for the surrounds on all of the internal doors. And then I'll just do a little bit of skirting board as well, just around that little bit of floor there. No need for coving or anything like that, and as you already know, I'm not doing coving or any decoration on the inside of the door. I'm just keeping that plain. Really just because once these main doors are closed, unless I went in with like one of those little pinhole cameras, you're not going to see that part of the room. You're not going to see what we sort of call the fourth wall, only when you sort of open the doors. But the mount field that I'm doing, which, you know, can be seen from all angles, and I've got it on a turntable, I am decorating the inside of the doors as well, because obviously you can see through every room. And the other thing I want to do as well is have a close up look at the brickwork. Now, when I sort of first applied it, and I've got these joins, I used just charcoal to go over the joins to try and hide those, but now it's sort of all drying in and obviously aging, that hasn't really worked. So I may try and use some acrylic paint just to touch up some of the marks on the brickwork. This, I think, is filler. I'm not sure how that got there. And one or two other little marks I've noticed on there as well. This is where this part of the door sits against that flap. So that's sort of pulling a little bit of the paper off. So I can, once this door is adjusted, touch that up, and that will sort that out. But I think sometimes it's a really good idea just to sit and look at your doll's house and look at all of the little areas and see if there are any areas that you need to touch up. And again, I've just seen that strip there that I've missed. So I'll go along those two attic strips as well with the stone coating paint. So yeah, lots of little bits I still need to look at. So I better get on with the next job. Okay, so what I want to do now is make a cover for the inside of the letterbox. So I'm just going to copy the surround on the outside of the door and not actually have a flap, so I'll just have a surround going around the cutout hole at the back. So I've measured the opening of the front one, and that's 22mm by 5mm. And to create the surround, I'm using this brass sheet. Now I can't remember what gauge these are, but you can see it's fairly flexible, but thicker than tin foil or aluminium foil. And I've got a piece of that here, and this is probably slightly thicker than that as well. And then this is the next one up, and then you can get them even sort of thicker than that, depending on what sort of job you want to use them for. But for this, I want something that's going to be thin enough for me to cut with my craft knife. And what I'm actually going to do is cut the hole out first, and then I will cut thinly around the edge. So I've got a border of about 1.5mm or 1/16 of an inch, and that's just easier than cutting the thing to size first, or cutting it to the size that you need, and then trying to cut out the centre, because chances are you'll just sort of cut through your surround. So always cut out the sort of inside hole first, or inside opening. And what I'm actually going to do is just tape this sheet to my desk just to keep it still while I'm working on it, and then I can do some lines on there that I can measure by, like that. And I'm taking this piece here as the back of the sheet, so the wrong side if you like, because it's got a little bit of a line going across it, and I'm not sure what that's from, but I obviously don't want that to be seen on the actual face of the piece that I'm cutting. So this will be the back, and that way I can also make some pencil marks on here to cut along. So I'm just trying to find a nice sharp pencil there. So I'm going to leave a lot more than I need at the side there. I'm using the lines on my cutting mat as well to make sure I'm going across nice and straight. So I want 22mm across there. Do a little line at each end as well, and I've come in 10mm, so I can do the same thing there. I also want it 5mm high. So again, if I use the line on the cutting mat, and then join that up down there, and then I can cut that out. And I've just fitted a new blade into the knife as well, just so you get a nice clean cut. I'm just going to go over those lines again. And then what I can do is now make lines or draw lines around here, 1.5mm away from all of the cutouts or the cut edges, and then cut around that as well. And with the outside edge I haven't got to be so precise because obviously I can go over the lines. Like that. And there's the surround. So I can now go and glue that into place. So that's the letterbox surround glued into place, and I used super glue for that. You'll need something a little stronger than wood glue when you're gluing any sort of metal sheets into place. So I'm just finishing up with the touching up here, going first of all along these attic walls, the slanted walls there. I've gone along that front edge where I had that bit of a stain, and then I've just put some paper under here and gone along that bottom edge as well. And then I've also cut the door surrounds and skirting for that little area near the front door, and these are all now sanded and ready for the first coat of paint. So that's the first coat of paint on those pieces, and that's just the natural calico. I'll do 2 or 3 coats on those. And then I've also given a first coat to the attic surrounds, and they'll go on the ceiling of the first floor. And then this is the sort of lid that will slot in above, so these sort of overlap the opening, creating a little bit of a ridge. And then that sits just on the inside so that that can be removed. And what I've also done is cut a cardboard template for the attic flooring. And I'm just using an old piece of painting sheet just because I haven't got any cereal packet card in my drawer at the moment. So it doesn't really matter the state of the card that you use because obviously it's going to be covered. But you just want something that's sort of thick enough that you can then glue the strips onto, or stick the strips onto. And I'm just using masking tape here where I needed to fill out the edges a little bit. That's a really good way of making your template really accurate. And I'll be using the walnut wood die as I did for the landing and entrance hall flooring up here as well, and obviously in the little back landing area too. So I'm just roughly sort of laying the stripwood flooring pieces onto my template here just to check that I've actually got enough, and I think with all of these sort of half pieces and little bits here that I will have enough to cover that template. And I've just actually used, this is all I've got left now, I've just used a couple of sheets doing these flooring pieces for my 1940s doll's house. So I've got the landing area, the children's bedroom and the main bedroom here, and that's the last 3 pieces of wooden flooring I need. And then the bathroom and the kitchen will be tiled. So I'll do this one now, and then I can actually apply the wood dye to all of these pieces because I also use walnut in the 1940s doll's house. So I can get that job done at the same time. So just stick in the last pieces of flooring on here. And where I've only got the smaller strips, the pattern has sort of fallen out after sort of midway, but I quite like the random look, I don't mind that. And at the back here, I'm actually just going to stick the shorter strips. And I've just got a little bit of tape overhanging on that edge, but I am going to go and try the flooring into place just to see if I do need to put a piece on there, because I'm going to have skirting board as well, so that may just cover up that gap there. But if it is sort of too large a gap, then I will just put a little slither of wood on there. So I'm just trying the flooring into place now, and that's the gap that I was talking about along there. So I've put a little bit of tape there to fill it out, but I actually don't think I need to put a piece of strip wood there. as the skirting, you can see on this side, is quite thick, so that will cover that up. I'm really happy with that fit. Just a little bit of trimming I had to do around the loft opening, but I'm happy now that I can apply the wood dye. So that's about 3 wet coats on there. I'm going to leave that to dry now overnight and then see how the colour looks in the morning, and I may have to give that another coat. I've also done second coats here on the door surround and skirting and the attic pieces as well, and they're now drying, but they will need a sand and then another coat as well. So what I think I'll do is leave this episode here. I'll carry on with these pieces and then update you on them in the next episode, when hopefully I've got everything fitted and that piece of flooring fitted at the top as well. Okay, so that's it for today, and I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. It feels really good now to have the doll's house at this stage and to have sorted out a lot of those little issues. So I just want to end by saying a very warm welcome to all of the new subscribers, and if you do sort of stop by and watch my videos but haven't yet subscribed, please do so, as it helps other people to find the videos and means I'll be able to spend more time here on YouTube. And also, if you do enjoy my content, you might like to know that I also have a Patreon channel, and Patreon is a paid membership platform, and the support I receive there means that I can continue making videos not only on Patreon but also here on YouTube. So do pop over and take a look. You can join from as little as $1 or £1 a month, and there are 4 tiers of membership, each offering different features. Now, you don't have to sign up for a year or any given length of time. If you just want to pop over for a month and see what you can watch within that time, then that's fine as well, and that would be truly appreciated. So I hope to see you there and be welcoming you as a little bitzer. Now, I'll be back soon with another video, so until then, take care. Bye!